Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the deep recesses of an unassuming wardrobe, a sanctuary remained unseen, a secret garden of fabrics and styles. Here, a sartorial treasure awaited, a collection of silken dresses, elegant blouses, swirling skirts, and towering heels. Each garment held a special story, chosen with care and loved by its keeper. A clandestine museum, this private collection remained locked away, only unveiled under the veil of secrecy and seclusion. In this hidden closet, a man, a contorted twist of dual identities, stood before the mirror, studying his reflection. A delicate contrast of features emerged. A sturdy, square jawline, broad-shouldered, it belonged to John Miller, an unassuming marketing manager. Yet, cloaked in an emerald gown, his body softened, a canvas of elegance and femininity untold. "Breakthrough at the lab. Dinner tonight?" John quickly changed back into jeans and a gray t-shirt, carefully returning the dress to its hiding place. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji and the address of their favorite restaurant. Hours later, seated at a corner table of Marcello's Italian bistro, Daniel leaned forward with an excited gleam in his eyes. "I've been working on something revolutionary," Daniel whispered, glancing around to ensure their privacy. "A compound that temporarily alters physical sex characteristics at the cellular level." John nearly choked on his water. "You're joking." "Dead serious. We've been developing it for gender-affirming care, to help people experience life in a body that matches their identity before committing to surgery or permanent options." John's heart raced. "And it works?" "Animal trials were successful. Human trials start next month." Daniel paused, studying John's face carefully. "I know about your collection, John. I've known for years." The glass in John's hand froze halfway to his mouth. "What are you talking about?" "I accidentally saw some things at your apartment 3 years ago when I was looking for your laptop charger. Never said anything because it wasn't my business." Daniel reached across the table and lowered his voice. "I've seen how you look when you think no one's watching. The way you linger at certain store windows." John's throat tightened. His secret, the one he'd protected so carefully, had been known all along. "I have a sample," Daniel continued. "1 dose. It lasts 48 hours according to our projections. Completely safe, completely reversible. I thought maybe you'd want to try it." The world seemed to slow around them. John stared at his friend, searching for any sign of judgment or mockery, but found only compassion and understanding. "Why would you risk your career to offer me this?" John finally managed. "Because you're my friend, and I think this could help you understand yourself better." That night, John sat in his apartment staring at the small vial of clear liquid Daniel had pressed into his hand. 48 hours. 2 days to experience something he'd only dreamed about. 2 days of freedom, with no lasting consequences. His hand trembled as he uncapped the vial. Before doubt could creep in, he swallowed the tasteless liquid in one gulp. Nothing happened immediately. John went to bed disappointed but not surprised. Experimental drugs, even breakthrough ones, probably didn't work like magic potions in fairy tales. The first changes woke him at dawn. A strange tingling sensation spread throughout his body, centering around his chest and hips. By mid-morning, subtle shifts had become impossible to ignore. His skin softened noticeably. Fat redistributed from his waist to his hips and chest. His brown hair, already slightly longer than most men wore it, seemed to grow several inches over the course of hours, falling in soft waves past his shoulders. By noon, John stood before the mirror in stunned silence. The person staring back was unmistakably female. Not a man in women's clothing, but a woman. She had his brown eyes, the same small scar above her right eyebrow from a childhood accident, but everything else had transformed. Her face had softened, features becoming more delicate. Her body now curved in ways that no amount of padding or shapewear could authentically recreate. With shaking hands, she reached for her phone and texted Daniel. "It worked. It really worked." His reply came seconds later. "How do you feel?" She considered the question, searching her emotions. "Complete," she typed back. For the first time, John opened the closet and pulled out items without shame or secrecy. From the back, she retrieved a black leather skirt she'd purchased months ago, but never dared to wear outside, along with a red silk blouse and knee-high black boots with a sensible heel. Clothes that had previously been fantasies now fit perfectly, as though they'd been made for this body. Looking in the mirror, she no longer saw John playing dress-up. She saw herself, her true self. "I need a name," she whispered to her reflection. After considering several options, one felt right. Annika. The weekend stretched before her, 48 precious hours to live authentically. Annika decided not to waste a minute of it. She stepped outside her apartment building, half expecting stares or comments. Instead, people barely glanced her way. A male neighbor held the door with a polite nod. A woman complimented her boots in passing. No one saw anything unusual about the brown-haired woman in the black leather skirt and red blouse walking confidently down the street. Annika visited a cafe she'd frequented as John, ordering her usual latte. The barista didn't recognize her, simply smiling and asking for a name for the order. Hearing Annika called out when her drink was ready sent a thrill through her entire body. She window shopped along the boulevard, entering stores she'd only gazed into before. She tried on dresses, purchased a delicate silver bracelet, and had her makeup done at a department store counter. Each interaction affirmed what she already knew. This felt right in a way nothing in her life ever had before. That evening, Daniel met her for dinner at an upscale restaurant Annika had always wanted to visit. "You look radiant," he said, genuine happiness in his eyes. "How does it feel?" "Like I've been holding my breath my whole life and finally remembered how to breathe." Annika sipped her wine. "I don't know how to thank you for this." "Seeing you happy is thanks enough." They enjoyed a luxurious meal, laughing and talking more freely than they had in years. For the first time, Annika felt no need to monitor her gestures or voice. She simply existed, authentically. As the weekend continued, Annika filled every moment with experiences she'd denied herself. She went dancing at a club, feeling the freedom of movement in her transformed body. She spent Sunday morning at a women's clothing boutique, being fitted for items she'd never dared to try before. The sales associates were kind, offering styling advice and treating her like any other customer. But as Sunday evening approached, a growing anxiety settled in her stomach. Soon, the serum would wear off. Soon, she would return to being John, with only memories of these perfect hours. At the 48-hour mark, Annika sat nervously on her couch, waiting for the changes to begin reversing. 1 hour passed, then 2. By midnight, nothing had changed. Confused and hopeful, she called Daniel. "Something's wrong," she said when he answered. Or maybe right? I don't know. It's been over 48 hours and nothing's happening. A long silence followed. Daniel? I need to tell you something, he finally said, his voice tight. Can I come over? 20 minutes later, Daniel sat across from her, looking both guilty and resolute.
The serum isn't temporary,
he admitted. Not exactly. Annika's heart pounded. What does that mean?
The project has 2 formulations. The temporary one is still in development.
He took a deep breath.
What I gave you was the permanent version.
The room seemed to spin. Permanent? You told me 48 hours.
I know, and I'm sorry for lying, but there's something else you should know.
Daniel leaned forward.
The permanent serum has a unique property. It only works, it only causes a complete transformation, if the recipient truly desires the change at a subconscious level.
What are you saying?
I'm saying it wouldn't have worked if this wasn't who you truly are. It's designed that way as a safeguard. If you'd only been curious, or if you simply enjoyed cross-dressing occasionally, you might have experienced minor changes that would have reverted naturally. The complete transformation only happens for people whose minds and bodies are genuinely misaligned.
Annika fell silent, processing his words. The initial shock of betrayal mingled with a dawning realization. If what Daniel said was true, then this transformation revealed her deepest truth.
You had no right to make that decision for me,
she finally said, her voice quiet but firm.
You're right. I didn't.
Daniel looked down at his hands.
I can work on an antidote if that's what you want. It might take time, but...
No, Annika interrupted, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. No antidote. She stood and walked to the window, gazing at the city lights. The panic she'd initially felt was fading, replaced by an unexpected sense of peace. I should be furious with you, she said. You lied to me. You made a life-altering decision on my behalf. I know. But the truth is, she continued, turning back to face him, you've given me what I've wanted my entire life, but was too afraid to pursue. She looked down at her hands. Her delicate, feminine hands that now matched the person she'd always felt herself to be. One weekend of being Annika has been more authentic than 32 years of being John. Daniel looked up, hope cautiously emerging on his face.
So you're not going to report me to the ethics board?
I should, she said with a small smile. But no, what's done is done, and truthfully, I'm grateful.
Though your methods were questionable at best.
In the days that followed, Annika faced practical challenges. John Miller had a job, an apartment lease, financial accounts, and a life. Annika needed to find a way to transition those legally. Daniel helped her contact a lawyer who specialized in identity changes. The process would be complicated, but not impossible. They crafted a narrative about John beginning transition earlier, and the documentation being delayed. It wasn't perfect, but it provided a framework for moving forward. Her employer was surprisingly supportive when she requested a meeting with HR. The marketing firm had a strong diversity policy, and while there were logistical matters to work through, they assured her that her position was secure. "We value your work," her supervisor said. "Your gender doesn't change your talent or expertise." The brown-haired woman in the black pencil skirt and cream blouse sitting across from him smiled gratefully, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Parents and extended family presented a more daunting challenge. Annika decided to begin with her mother, who had always been more emotionally intuitive
than her father. They met at a quiet cafe, and the moment her mother saw her, there was a flash of recognition despite the physical changes. "John?" she asked hesitantly. "It's Annika now, Mom." She took a deep breath. "I have a lot to explain." Over the next 2 hours, Annika shared her story, edited to exclude the experimental serum aspect. She described years of private struggle, of knowing her true identity but fearing the consequences of embracing it. Her mother listened silently, tears occasionally slipping down her cheeks. When Annika finished, she reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "I always sensed something," she admitted. "I never had the words for it, but I knew you were carrying something heavy. I just wanted you to be happy." She squeezed Annika's hand. "Are you happy now?" "For the first time in my life, yes." "Then that's what matters." Not everyone was as accepting. Her father needed time. Some friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the change they couldn't understand, but others remained steadfast, and new relationships formed with people who knew only Annika, never John. 6 months after her transformation, Annika received the last of her updated legal documents. Her driver's license, passport, birth certificate, and other records now reflected her true identity. She celebrated by treating herself to a shopping trip, purchasing a green dress that reminded her of the one John had worn in private that last evening, before everything changed. As she walked home, shopping bag swinging from her arm, she passed the restaurant where Daniel had first offered her the serum. On impulse, she texted him. "Dinner tonight? My treat. I have news." They met at their usual table, Daniel arriving as Annika was halfway through her glass of wine. "You look wonderful," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "What's the news?" She opened her purse and proudly displayed her new ID cards. "It's official. Legally and completely, John Miller no longer exists. I'm Annika Miller in every way that matters." Daniel raised his water glass in a toast. "To Annika Miller." "Actually," she said, reaching into her bag again, "I wanted to give you something." She handed him a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo of Annika standing in front of her office building, dressed professionally in a navy blue dress, her brown hair styled elegantly, a confident smile on her face. "First day back at work after everything was finalized," she explained. "I wanted you to have it. Despite the questionable ethics of your approach, I wouldn't be who I am without you." Daniel blinked rapidly, clearly moved. "I still feel guilty sometimes about how it happened." "Don't. The method wasn't ideal, but the outcome was right. The serum only completed the transformation because this is who I truly am. One dose was all it took to align my physical self with my identity." She smiled. "Sometimes the universe works in strange ways. In my case, it worked through my ethically flexible best friend and his experimental pharmaceuticals." Daniel laughed, relaxing for perhaps the first time since the day he'd confessed the truth. "What's next for you?" Annika considered the question. "Living. Just living authentically. Dating, maybe. I've been talking with a man from my building. Nothing serious yet, but promising." "Are you going to tell him about—"
"Eventually, if things get serious."
"But not yet." She twirled pasta around her fork.
"For now, I'm enjoying being seen for who I am without the shadow of who I was."
As dinner continued, they reminisced about college days and shared stories about work. For a moment, watching Daniel laugh at something she'd said, Annika was struck by how some things remained perfectly unchanged, while others had transformed completely. After dinner, they walked together toward the subway station. The evening air was cool, and Annika wrapped her light jacket more tightly around her red blouse.
"I've been meaning to ask," Daniel said as they walked. "Do you ever regret it? Even fleetingly?"
Annika considered the question carefully.
"Not regret, no. Sometimes I think about how different my life might have been if I'd had the courage to pursue this change years ago, through conventional means. There are moments I mourn the time lost." She shrugged. "But regret the change itself? Never." They reached the station entrance and paused to say goodnight. "Thank you," Annika said simply, "for seeing me before I could even see myself clearly." Daniel hugged her. "I just gave you a push. You did the hard part. Living your truth." As they parted ways, Annika realized he was right. The serum had changed her body, but she had done the work of building a life that honored her authentic self. Each day was a step further into the person she was meant to be. Walking home, her knee-high boots clicking rhythmically on the pavement, Annika felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path had been unexpected, but it had led exactly where she needed to go. In her apartment, she kicked off her boots and stood before the full-length mirror. The woman who gazed back at her with confident brown eyes no longer seemed like a miracle or a temporary gift. She was simply Annika, finally at home in her own reflection. She touched the fabric of her red blouse and black leather skirt, the same outfit she'd worn that first day after her transformation. It had become something of a touchstone, worn on days when she wanted to connect with the journey that had brought her here. Opening her closet, Annika smiled at the rows of clothing that now hung proudly in the open, no longer hidden in the back corner. She ran her fingers along the fabrics, appreciating the simple joy of having a wardrobe that expressed rather than disguised who she was. Her phone chimed with a text message from her neighbor Michael. "Coffee tomorrow?" She typed back a quick, "Love to, 10 a.m.? The casual interaction still held a thrill, being asked out by someone who saw and appreciated her authentic self. Dating as Annika had been an adjustment, but a welcome one. She was learning to navigate romantic relationships from a place of wholeness rather than compartmentalization. As she prepared for bed, removing her makeup and changing into silk pajamas, Annika thought about the strange path that had led her here. Daniel's deception could have been disastrous, but instead, it had become the catalyst for her liberation. One dose of serum had aligned her physical form with her inner truth, but the journey of living that truth was ongoing. Tomorrow would bring another day of being Annika, in meetings at work, having coffee with Michael, calling her mother, existing in the world as her complete self. The woman with the long brown hair and confident smile who looked back from her mirror was no longer a weekend experiment or a temporary experience. She was simply, wonderfully, herself. And that, Annika thought as she turned out the light, was worth everything. 1 year to the day after her transformation, Annika hosted a small dinner party in her apartment. Daniel was there, along with her mother, 2 close friends from work, and Michael, who had moved from coffee dates to something much more significant over the past several months. Her mother brought out a cake with a single candle. "Happy Rebirth Day," she said with a warm smile. Annika blinked back tears as she looked around the table. "I never could have imagined this," she said softly. "All of you, here, celebrating with me as my authentic self." Later, after the guests had gone home, except for Michael, who was helping with the dishes, Annika felt a wave of contentment wash over her. "You've been smiling all evening,"
Michael observed. drying a wine glass. "I was just thinking about how much can change in a year," she replied, her hands submerged in soapy water. "Last year at this time, I was living half a life. Now, I have all of this. A whole life. Amazing friends. You." Michael set down the dish towel and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I'm the lucky one," he murmured into her hair. That night, lying awake beside Michael's sleeping form, Annika reflected on the strange, miraculous journey that had brought her here. One dose of an experimental serum, one weekend that had stretched into a lifetime, one friend who had seen her true self beneath the carefully constructed facade. She thought of the black leather skirt and red blouse hanging in her closet, now joined by dozens of other garments that expressed different facets of her personality. That first outfit remained special, a reminder of those first steps into authenticity, of looking into shop windows with longing and finally being able to wear what she'd admired. In the morning, she would wake up as herself, go to work as herself, love as herself. No more hidden closets, no more secret collections, no more compartmentalized existence. One dose had been all it took to align her physical self with her identity, but it had taken her own courage to build a life around that truth, to face the challenges and embrace the joys of living authentically. Annika closed her eyes. Her long brown hair spread across the pillow and drifted to sleep as herself. Completely, wonderfully, finally herself.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!